Don't wait up, she said. So I moved out that night. 23 years of marriage destroyed by secret hotel meetings, funded with money stolen from our family diner. My daughters discovered her betrayal in the most shocking way, and my revenge was brutal and sweet. My name is Dale Kramer. I'm 47 years old, and I've been running Kramer's family diner in Millfield since my dad passed and left me the place. It's not much to look at. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and a grill that's seen better decades. But it's ours, or was ours, and it put food on our table and kept our 3 girls in clothes that weren't hand-me-downs. That Tuesday evening, everything seemed normal enough. Cheryl, our oldest at 21, was wiping down tables after the dinner crowd. Brenda, 16 and full of attitude, was rolling silverware while complaining about her chemistry homework. Little Tammy, 13 and still our baby, was stacking plates with the careful concentration she brought to everything. Norma stood at the register, counting the day's take. She'd changed into a clean blouse, which struck me as odd since we were just going home to leftover meatloaf. Her hair was down instead of pulled back in the practical ponytail she wore during service. "Dale," she said without looking up from the 20s in her hands, "I'm going out with the girls tonight. Helen's birthday, you remember." I didn't remember Helen mentioning any birthday, but Helen worked the morning shift, and I barely saw her except an odd hello. "Sure thing," I said, hanging up my apron. "What time you think you'll be back?" Norma shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. "Could be late. You know how these things go. Don't wait up." Something in her tone made me pause. Not the words themselves, but the way she said them, flat, like she was reading from script. In 23 years, Norma had never told me not to wait up. She was the one who worried when I was 5 minutes late from the supply run. "Norma," I started, but she was already moving toward the door, keys jingling in her hand. "Girls, finish closing up and help your father," she called over her shoulder. "I'll see you in the morning." The door chimed as she left, and I stood there staring at the empty space where my wife had been. Cheryl looked up from her table, eyebrows raised. "Dad, Mom's been acting weird lately," she said quietly. "Like really weird." I wanted to tell her she was imagining things, that her mother was just tired from the long hours we'd been pulling. But the words stuck in my throat because I'd been thinking the same thing for weeks. That night, after the girls went to bed, I sat in our kitchen staring at the clock. Midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. By 3 in the morning, I'd made my decision. I packed a bag, left a note, and drove to my brother's place across town. Because when your wife of 23 years tells you not to wait up with the same warmth she'd used to discuss the weather, maybe it's time to stop waiting altogether. The morning after I left, I sat in my brother Tommy's kitchen drinking coffee that could strip paint and thinking about all the signs I'd missed. Tommy was smart enough not to ask too many questions, just handed me a mug and sat down across from me like it was perfectly normal for his older brother to show up at 3 a.m. with a duffel bag. "How long you figure this has been going on?" Tommy asked after I'd given him the basics. I thought about it, really thought about it. Started maybe 3 months ago. Norma began staying late at the diner, said she was reorganizing the supply room. Then she started taking phone calls in the office with the door closed. The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Our anniversary was 2 months ago, 23 years. I planned a quiet dinner at home after we closed the diner, bought her favorite wine, even picked up flowers from the grocery store. When I mentioned it that morning, Norma just nodded and said, "That's nice, Dale. That's nice." Like I told her about the weather. She forgot our anniversary dinner, I told Tommy. Said she had to meet with a new vendor about coffee supplies. Came home at 11 p.m. smelling like cigarettes, and Norma quit smoking 10 years ago. Tommy whistled low. "Man, that's cold." The girls had noticed too, I realized. Cheryl had mentioned her mother's mood swings. Brenda complained that Mom snapped at her for asking about homecoming dress shopping. Even little Tammy had asked me why Mommy was always on her phone now. I chalked it up to stress. The diner business was tough, especially with a new chain restaurant that opened up on Route 15. But now I wondered if stress was just convenient cover for something else entirely. My phone buzzed. A text from Cheryl. "Dad, where are you? Mom's acting really weird and asking a million questions." I stared at the message, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach tighten. Of course Norma was asking questions. She'd probably expected to come home to an empty house and a husband who'd waited up like a faithful dog, just like always. "I need to go talk to the girls," I told Tommy. Tommy nodded. You want some advice? Shoot. Whatever you do, don't let her turn this around on you. Cheaters are real good at making you feel like you're the problem. I drove back to our house, the house I'd paid for with 20 years of flipping eggs and brewing coffee, and found Norma's car in the driveway. She was probably inside right now, spinning some story about vendor meetings and late-night supply runs. But I wasn't the same man who'd waited up until 3 a.m. anymore. I was done believing in fairy tales, and I was definitely done being played for a fool. Time to have a conversation that was 23 years overdue. Walking into my own house felt like entering enemy territory. Norma was in the kitchen, still wearing that dress from the night before, sitting at our table with her hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. "Dale," she said when I walked in. Her voice was steady, but I caught the tremor underneath. "We need to talk." "Yeah, we do." I stayed standing, arms crossed. 23 years of marriage, and I'd never felt like a stranger in my own kitchen before. "Start with where you really were last night." Norma's jaw tightened. "I told you. Helen's birthday dinner ran late." "Helen's birthday was 3 months ago, Norma." I remember because Cheryl made her a cake at the diner. For just a second, I saw panic flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold mask I've been seeing more and more lately. "Fine," she said, standing up. "You want the truth? I've been seeing someone." The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd known they were coming. Hearing it out loud was different. "Final. How long?" I kept my voice level, controlled. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." Norma sighed, like I was being unreasonable. 6 months. Maybe 7. 7 months. While I was getting up at 5 a.m. to prep breakfast for truckers and farmers. While I was teaching Tammy how to balance the register. While I was planning our anniversary dinner that she'd blown off for him. "Who is he?" "Rex Morgan. He's a food distributor. He comes through town twice a month." The name hit me like a gut punch. I knew Rex Morgan, tall guy with a beard, always flirted with the waitresses, always had a joke ready. He'd been coming to the diner for over a year, and I'd serve him coffee and conversation like he was a friend. "You've been bringing him into our diner," I said. It wasn't a question. "Dale, it's not what you think." "Don't." I held up a hand. "Don't you dare tell me what I think. You've been lying to my face for 7 months. You've been sleeping with another man while I'm busting my back to keep our family business running. So don't tell me what I think." Norma's mask slipped again, and I saw something ugly underneath. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of that damn diner, this wouldn't have happened. There was. Tommy had warned me about this. The part where she tried to make it my fault. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to cheat on me and then blame me for it. You made a choice, Norma. Own it." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. In 23 years, I'd never spoken to her like that. Maybe I should have started sooner. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. I looked around the kitchen, at the table where we'd fed our daughters breakfast for 20 years, at the refrigerator covered with their school pictures and report cards, at the life we'd built that she decided wasn't enough. "Now you tell me if this is over," I said. "Him or me, Norma. But I'm done sharing." Norma looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're giving me an ultimatum?" "I'm giving you a choice," I corrected. "The same choice you gave me when you decided to start sleeping around." She stood up, pacing to the window. "It's not that simple, Dale. You don't understand what I've been going through." "Then explain it. But don't expect me to feel sorry for you." Norma turned back to me, and I saw tears in her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt something. Almost. I felt invisible, she said. Like I was just part of the furniture of the diner. "You never looked at me anymore, never really saw me. So you decided Rex Morgan was the solution?" He made me feel alive again. Like I was more than just a short-order cook and a mother. I studied my wife's face, looking for some sign of the woman I'd married. "And what about our daughters? What about Tammy, who still thinks you hung the moon? What about the business we built together?" Norma's expression hardened. "The girls will adjust. And the diner, we can figure that out." The casual way she dismissed our daughter's feelings told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about feeling invisible or unappreciated. This was about Norma wanting something new and exciting, and to hell with the collateral damage. "You want to know what I think?" I said, moving closer. "I think you've been planning this for a while. I think Rex Morgan isn't some accident. He's your exit strategy." Norma's face went pale. "That's not. How much is he worth, Norma?" "Because a food distributor with his own routes, that's serious money." More than a small-town diner owner can provide. You're being paranoid. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly for the first time in months? We stared at each other across the kitchen, 23 years of marriage hanging in the balance. Finally, Norma spoke. I'm not ending it with Rex, she said quietly. I can't. Can't or won't. Does it matter? I nodded slowly. It does. Because can't means you're in too deep to think straight. Won't means you've made your choice. Norma lifted her chin defiantly. I won't. Then we're done. I turned toward the door. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. Dale, wait. Her voice broke a little. What about the diner? What about the girls? I stopped but didn't turn around. The diner's mine. My father left it to me, not us. As for the girls, they're old enough to decide who they want to live with. And after they find out what you've done, I'm pretty sure I know what they'll choose. I walked out of that kitchen and didn't look back. Because sometimes being a man means knowing when to stop fighting for something that's already dead. The next morning at the diner, I watched Rex Morgan's delivery truck pull into our parking lot like he owned the place. Through the kitchen window, I could see him climbing out of the cab with that same cocky smile he'd been wearing for months. The smile of a man who thought he was getting away with something. Cheryl, I called my oldest daughter, who was setting up the coffee station. Take your sisters to the supply room. I need to handle something. Cheryl looked at me with concern. Dad, you okay? You've been acting strange since yesterday. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just need a private conversation with our distributor. Rex walked through the front door like he always did, all casual confidence and easy charm. Morning, Dale. Beautiful day, isn't it? Is it? I stepped out from behind the counter, positioning myself between him and the rest of the diner. Depends on your perspective, I guess. Something in my tone must have registered because Rex's smile faltered slightly. Everything all right, buddy? Buddy. I let the word hang in the air. That's interesting. Because I'm trying to figure out what you call a man who's been sleeping with your wife behind your back for 7 months. Rex went pale. To his credit, he didn't try to deny it immediately. Dale, I don't. I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look up at me. Don't insult my intelligence any more than you already have. Look, it's complicated. No, it's really not. You've been using my business as your personal dating service. Coming into my diner, eating my food, shaking my hand, all while you're screwing my wife. Rex glanced around nervously, probably looking for Norma. Where is she? Gone. Left yesterday to think about her priorities. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. But you're here now, so let's have a chat about business. Business. Your distribution route. See, I've been thinking about switching suppliers. Found a company out of Springfield that can beat your prices by 15%. Rex's face went from pale to gray. Dale, you can't. Can't what? Choose who I do business with. This is America, Rex. Free market and all that. But we have a contract. Month to month. Renewable at my discretion. I read the fine print. I pulled out a copy of our agreement and set it on the counter. 30 days notice for cancellation. Consider this your notice. Rex stared at the contract like it was a death sentence. You're making a mistake. Norma and it wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen? You waltz into my life, steal my wife, and I just smile and keep buying your overpriced coffee beans. She wasn't happy, Dale. She told me. I don't care what she told you. I moved closer again. Here's what I'm telling you. You've got 30 days to find new customers for this route. After that, if I see your truck in this parking lot, I'll assume you're trespassing. Rex opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. What about Norma? What about her? She's planning to come with me. New territory, new opportunities. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Then I guess you better make sure those opportunities pay well. Because she won't be getting a dime from me or this business. Rex straightened his shoulders, trying to salvage some dignity. You can't control her, Dale. I'm not trying to control anybody. I'm just protecting what's mine. I gestured around the diner. This place, my daughters, my future. None of that includes people who think loyalty is optional. After Rex left, I stood in the empty diner for a long moment. 23 years of marriage, and it had come down to a business transaction. Maybe that's all it had ever been. My daughters found me in the office an hour later, going through supplier catalogs like nothing had happened. But Cheryl, sharp as her mother used to be, wasn't buying the act. Dad, she said, closing the office door behind her. What's going on? Brenda said she saw you talking to that delivery guy, and he looked like someone had punched him. I looked up at my 3 girls, 21, 16, and 13, and realized I couldn't protect them from this much longer. They deserved to know why their world was about to change. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the chairs around my desk. "We need to talk." Tammy, my youngest, perched on the edge of her chair with wide eyes. "Are we in trouble?" "No, baby. You're not in trouble." I took a deep breath. "But your mother and I are having some serious problems." "Like divorce problems?" Brenda asked with the bluntness of a 16-year-old. "Maybe. Probably." I ran a hand through my hair. "Your mother has been seeing another man. That delivery driver, Rex Morgan." The silence that followed was deafening. Cheryl's face went through several emotions before settling on anger. Brenda just stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Tammy looked confused. "What does that mean?" Tammy asked in a small voice. Cheryl answered before I could. "It means Mom's been cheating on Dad." "Cheryl," I warned gently. "What? She hasn't she? All those late nights, all those meetings, she was with him." I nodded reluctantly. "Yes." Brenda found her voice. "How long?" 7 months, according to your mother." 7 months. Cheryl stood up, pacing to the window. "She's been lying to us for 7 months. She's been lying to all of us." Tammy started crying then. Not the dramatic sobs of a teenager, but the quiet, heartbroken tears of a child whose world had just collapsed. I pulled her into my lap and held her tight. "What happens now?" Brenda asked. "That depends on your mother. But regardless of what she decides, you girls need to know that none of this is your fault. And no matter what happens between your mother and me, I'll always be here for you." "Will we have to choose?" Cheryl asked quietly. "Between you and Mom?" "I hope not. But if it comes to that," I looked at each of them carefully, "I won't make that choice for you. But I will tell you this. I've spent 23 years building this life for our family. Your mother decided it wasn't enough. I'm not going to abandon everything we've built because she wants something different." Brenda wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't want to live with her if she's going to be with him." Brenda. "No, Dad. She lied to us. She lied to you. Why would we want to live with someone who does that?" Cheryl nodded agreement. "If she wants to throw away our family for some random guy, that's her choice. But she doesn't get to take us with her." Looking at my daughter's strong, loyal, principled young women, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. Norma had given birth to them, but I'd raised them to know right from wrong. "We'll get through this," I told them. Together. Monday morning, I sat in attorney Marcus Webb's office with a box of financial records and a head full of righteous anger. Webb was the kind of lawyer small business owners respected. Sharp, practical, and expensive enough to get results. "So let me get this straight," Webb said, reviewing the papers I brought. "Your wife of 23 years has been having an affair with a business supplier, and now she wants half of everything. That's about the size of it." I leaned back in the leather chair. "But here's the thing. She's been using the diner as her personal dating service, meeting him there after hours, taking money from the register for their little adventures." Webb raised an eyebrow. "Can you prove the financial irregularities?" I pulled out a folder thick with receipts and bank statements. 3 months of discrepancies. Never more than $50 at a time. Always on nights when Norma closed alone. She's been skimming to pay for hotel rooms and dinners with Rex. This changes things significantly. Webb made notes on his legal pad. In Tennessee, adultery can affect property division, especially when marital assets are involved. What about the business? The diner's been in my family for 30 years. If you can prove she used business resources to facilitate the affair, we can argue she forfeited her claim to marital interest in the business. Webb looked up at me. "But Dale, this is going to get ugly." "She'll fight back." As if on cue, my phone rang. Norma's name on the screen. "Speak of the devil," I said, declining the call. The phone immediately rang again. This time I answered. "What do you want, Norma?" "I want to talk," she said, her voice tight with stress. "This has gone too far." "Has it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it hasn't gone far enough." "Dale, be reasonable. We can work this out without lawyers." I looked at Webb, who was shaking his head vigorously. "Sorry, Norma. You made your choice when you decided Rex was more important than our family. Now you get to live with the consequences. You're destroying our daughters' lives out of spite. I'm protecting our daughter's inheritance from a woman who thinks loyalty is optional." I kept my voice level, professional. "Anything else you want to discuss can go through my attorney." I hung up and turned to Webb. How long will this take? Depends on how hard she wants to fight. But with the evidence you provided? 6 months, maybe less. Good. Because I'm done wasting time on someone who checked out of our marriage 7 months ago. Webb smiled grimly. I like your chances, Dale. Women who steal from family businesses to fund affairs don't typically get much sympathy from judges. Walking out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. For 7 months, Norma had been calling the shots, deciding when to lie, when to cheat, when to come clean. Now it was my turn. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves the local diner and a cheating wife. By Wednesday, half of Millfield knew about Norma and Rex, and the other half was pretending they didn't. The morning rush brought unexpected support. Bill Patterson, who'd been eating breakfast at our counter for 15 years, slid an extra $10 bill across the Formica. For the girls' college fund, he said gruffly. Don't want to see them suffer for their mother's mistakes. Bill, you don't need to. Hell, I don't. You've been feeding this town good food at fair prices for decades. Far as I'm concerned, Norma lost her mind. By lunch, 3 more regulars had left extra tips for the girls. Mrs. Henderson, who ran the flower shop next door, brought over a casserole and a lecture about modern women forgetting their priorities. In my day, she said, setting the dish on our counter, a woman understood that family came first. All this nonsense about finding yourself. What foolishness. But it was Frank Russo's visit that really surprised me. Frank owned the auto shop across the street and rarely spoke more than 2 words to anyone. Heard about your situation, he said, settling onto a counter stool. Had something similar happen to my brother up in Memphis. Yeah. Wife ran off with her personal trainer. Left him with 2 kids and a mortgage. Frank stirred sugar into his coffee. Know what he did? What's that? Started over. Found a woman who appreciated what he brought to the table instead of constantly wanting more. Frank looked at me seriously. Point is, Dale, this ain't the end of your story. It's just the end of the chapter with the wrong woman. That afternoon, Cheryl approached me while I was cleaning the grill. Dad, people have been asking me questions at school. I tensed. What kind of questions? About Mom. About why she hasn't been around. Cheryl picked up a towel and started drying silverware. I told them she was dealing with some personal issues. That's diplomatic. I also told them that no matter what happens, we're staying with you. I looked at my oldest daughter, intelligent, loyal, principled, and felt a surge of pride. You don't have to take sides, sweetheart. I'm not taking sides, Dad. I'm choosing integrity over selfishness. Cheryl met my eyes. Mom made her choice. Now we're making ours. That evening, after we closed the diner, I found a note tucked under the cash register. Norma's handwriting. I never wanted it to end this way. The girls deserve better than this war between us. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. She was right about one thing. The girls did deserve better. They deserved a mother who put family first and a father who fought for what was right. They were getting 1 out of 2, and that would have to be enough. 6 weeks into the divorce proceedings, Norma showed up at the diner during the lunch rush. She looked thinner, older, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Rex was nowhere to be seen. I was working the grill when Cheryl approached me. Dad, Mom's here. She wants to talk to you. Tell her we're busy. She can make an appointment with my lawyer. She says it's about Rex. Something happened. I looked through the kitchen window and saw Norma sitting in the back booth, staring at a cup of coffee like it held the answers to life's problems. Against my better judgment, I turned off the grill and walked over. What do you want, Norma? She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. He's gone, Dale. Rex is gone. Gone where? I don't know. He said the divorce was taking too long, that his company was asking too many questions about his routes. Norma's voice broke slightly. He left yesterday, took everything we had saved, and just disappeared. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity. So let me get this straight. You threw away 23 years of marriage for a guy who cut and ran the moment things got complicated. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. What was it supposed to be like? You steal from our business, lie to our daughters, destroy our family, and then what? You all ride off into the sunset together. Norma flinched. I made mistakes. You made choices, I corrected. Bad ones. And now you get to live with the consequences. The girls won't talk to me. Can you blame them? You chose a stranger over your own family. I want to make this right, Dale. I want to come home. I stared at my wife of 23 years and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no love, no pity, just emptiness where strong emotions used to live. There's no home to come back to, I said quietly. You burned that bridge when you decided Rex Morgan was more important than your family. But the divorce will proceed as planned. My lawyer says we should have final papers within the month. Norma stood up shakily. What about my half of the diner? Your half. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You forfeited any claim to this business when you used it to steal money for your boyfriend. Check the divorce papers when you get them. You can't do this. It's already done. I gestured around the diner, at the customers who'd supported me, at my daughters working behind the counter, at the life I'd built despite her betrayal. This is my family's business now. You're just a customer, and not a particularly welcome one. After she left, Cheryl came over and put her hand on my shoulder. You okay, Dad? I looked around the diner one more time, really looked at it. Saw the strong business we'd built, the loyal customers who'd stood by us, the 3 amazing daughters who'd chosen integrity over convenience. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm better than okay. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October, exactly 8 months after that night, when Norma told me not to wait up. I signed the papers in Marcus Webb's office with my 3 daughters beside me, officially ending 23 years of marriage and starting the next chapter of our lives. Congratulations, Webb said, shaking my hand. You kept the diner, the house, and custody of girls. Norma gets her personal belongings and half the money from your joint savings account, about $3,000. What about her lawyer's claim that she deserved half of everything? Hard to argue for half of a business you embezzled from. The judge was not sympathetic to her position. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of lies, deception, and false hope had been lifted from my shoulders. 6 months later, Kramer's family diner was thriving like never before. Word had spread about our situation, and instead of driving customers away, it had brought in support from neighboring towns. People respected a man who stood up for his principles and protected his family. Cheryl had enrolled in business school, but still worked weekends. Brenda was applying to colleges with scholarship money she'd earned through good grades and community service. Little Tammy, now 14, could run the register better than most adults. The diner itself had been renovated with the money we'd saved by cutting out Rex Morgan's overpriced supplies. New booths, fresh paint, updated equipment. The place looked better than it had in decades. On a busy Saturday morning, while watching my daughters work together like a well-oiled machine, Frank Russo approached the counter. Dale, you got a minute? Sure, Frank. What's on your mind? My niece is coming to town next month. She's a teacher, just got divorced herself. Good woman, raised her kids right. Frank stirred sugar into his coffee. Thought maybe you two might have something in common. I consider the offer. For the first time in years, the idea of meeting someone new didn't seem impossible. Maybe, I said. But no pressure, right? I'm pretty busy with the business and the girls. No pressure at all. Just thought you might like to meet someone who understands what real commitment looks like. That afternoon, I stood in the diner kitchen watching my daughters serve customers and handle problems with the competence and integrity I taught them. This was what mattered: family, hard work, and people who stood by you when times got tough. Norma had chosen excitement over stability, passion over commitment, fantasy over reality. She'd gotten exactly what she deserved, nothing. I'd chosen my daughters, my business, and my principles. And I'd gotten everything that truly mattered. Sometimes the best revenge is simply building a better life without the people who try to tear you down.